Support for Colorado Today comes from Safeway. This Labor Day, fire up the grill and enjoy quality meats and fresh local produce from Safeway. Safeway proudly supports Colorado farms and small businesses. Shop in-store or in the Safeway app.
Support for Colorado Today comes from Credit Union of Colorado. With access to over 30,000 ATMs and a mobile app, they're dedicated to offering the services of a big bank with a heart. Learn more at honestlygood.org.
¿Qué pasó, mi Colorado? I'm back from out east, and while driving my car to the Packy and all the wicked lobster was nice, I'm happy to be back in Colorado, giving you all the local news you need. Also, that view from the plane, jeez. Not a lot of things can compete with our mountains, can they? I'm Arlo Pérez, Esquivel. Coming up, a coroner is being accused of mismanaging loved ones' remains, and this might be indicating a morbid trend.
I want to believe this is the exception and not the rule.
Then the weather might have cooled down, but Colorado's fire season is the worst in years. The storms are full of lightning, but not water.
Pretty alarming at how little precipitation there's been, really going back to February or so.
Plus, you might be familiar with the Big Apple or the Mile High City, but did you know Boulder also has a nickname?
And we have hung on to that nickname for a number of years because we've been really proud of being hippies.
It's Tuesday. Here's the news in Colorado today. Decomposing bodies were allegedly improperly stored in a private mortuary. Now, the Pueblo County coroner is facing a criminal investigation. It is the latest in what appears to be a morbid trend in Colorado. CPR's Haley May joins me to talk about this case and what it means for funeral home oversight. Haley, can you first catch us up on this situation in Pueblo County?
Yeah, Arlo. The remains of an estimated 20 people were found hidden behind a cardboard-covered door at Davis Mortuary in Pueblo during an audit by the state this month. That investigation was part of new regulations made official after a bill was passed last year in an effort to prevent things like this from happening. Now, some of the bodies discovered are thought to have been stored there for as long as 15 years, allegedly awaiting cremation.
Wow, 15 years behind a cardboard-covered door. So who's to blame?
Well, this private funeral home is actually co-owned by Pueblo County Coroner Brian Cotter and his brother. The Colorado Bureau of Investigation is conducting a criminal probe into Cotter's practices, but neither brother has been arrested. Here's the new CBI director, Armando Saldate. He says identifying the bodies is a priority.
The state of some of the remains and the need for scientific confirmation, such as DNA analysis, means we must be thorough and deliberate to ensure accuracy.
Governor Jared Polis and other officials have called for Cotter's resignation, but I should note that the governor cannot remove a county coroner. That can only be done through a recall vote by county residents.
Wow. How have industry groups responded to this latest situation?
The Colorado Coroners Association removed Cotter from its board following the discovery, and they called his practices unethical. And I also spoke with Matt Whaley. He's the president of the Colorado Funeral Directors Association.
I want to believe this is the exception and not the rule. I know there's a lot of providers out there that are just saddened by the story that we're learning coming out of Pueblo, Colorado, in the sense that he too was their coroner.
Whaley is happy to see that the state is taking steps recently to address what appears to be a systemic issue in Colorado.
Yeah, I am glad he brought up that point because this is not the first time Colorado funeral homes make headlines. There was that funeral home owner in Penrose that mishandled at least 190 bodies. Mm-hmm. In that same location, his wife admitted to sending fake ashes to grieving families. Then in Montrose, there was a different funeral home that was found selling bodies and body parts. Now, I know that the state has since then taken measures to rein in the industry's conduct. Tell me about that.
Yes, so that's part of the legislation we mentioned earlier, which was inspired by those scandals. They sort of exposed that the state system had little oversight, basically no regular checks, no required operator training, and little accountability. But that's what also makes the Pueblo County situation a little bit different, because the state investigation is one of the first done under these new rules, which allow the state to inspect funeral homes even if there hasn't been a complaint against them. Another recent state law added 2 full-time inspectors to carry out these inspections now that the state has the authority to audit and investigate.
That brings up an interesting question. Should the position of a county coroner in Colorado be an elected office? And who exactly should be able to hold that role?
Basically, a coroner's role is to determine the cause and manner of death, and that's a pretty big job. But up until recently, state law only required candidates to be a registered voter, have a high school diploma or GED, and not have a felony conviction. Another new law did change that. It requires that a coroner of counties over 150,000 people be either a certified death investigator or a certified forensic pathologist in good standing. Now, in the case of Brian Cotter in Pueblo County, this brings up different questions around the office, like conflicts of interest, given that Cotter has finances tied to his private practice.
Wow. Let's take a step back and talk about the Pueblo County families who are concerned about their loved ones, the ones that are concerned that they might have been impacted by this. What recourse do they have right now?
Well, as the investigation gets underway, there's still a lot up in the air, but people who are concerned their loved ones' remains were improperly handled can call the information line that I'll list now. That's 719-257-3359. Again, 719-257-3359.
This has obviously destroyed a lot of trust that people had in the funeral industry. Are the industry professionals doing something to restore that?
Well, they haven't done much yet, but a statement from the Coroners Association did say that they stand united with the victims and their families. And I do want to go back to something that Matt Whaley from the Colorado Funeral Directors Association said to me.
What we really want to make sure that the consumer understands is that, that they get, when they call these funeral providers, a general price list. And if the price seems too good to be true, it probably is.
That's definitely not a consideration that anyone wants to have about their loved one's remains.
No, it's really not, Arlo. Whaley did tell me that you can look at the website of the Colorado Department of Regulatory Agencies to learn whether there are any pending investigations into the funeral home that you're considering. But we should note the only groups that have the power to change how the industry functions is the legislature or voters through a constitutional amendment.
Hey, LeMay, thank you so much.
Thank you.
Yo, what the heck happened while I was away? All of a sudden, it's cold in Colorado, and it looks like more wet and cool weather for the next week. Despite some of the rain, though, it's been an exceptionally dry August, and that's helped fuel Colorado's worst wildfire season since 2020. CPR's climate editor, Tegan Wendland, is here to help us understand why. Tegan, can you give us a quick update on where things stand with the wildfires in the state?
Yeah, so more than 200,000 acres have already burned, and it's only August. The Lee fire is now 90% contained, but it'll go down as one of the 5 largest wildfires in state history. And what's both kind of shocking and concerning is that most of the growth on that fire happened over a period of about 5 to 10 days.
Wow, so what exactly is going on here?
It can basically be summed up in one word, which is drought. One of the big challenges with these kind of events is that it's hard to know whether it's climate change or just random weather patterns, right? So Russ Schumacher is the state climatologist, and he said drought can be part of a natural cycle, but in this case, it's part of a bigger pattern.
You look at the precipitation over the last few months in these areas in northwest Colorado, and there's just pretty alarming at how little precipitation there's been, really going back to February or so.
So basically, we started the summer parched because there was so little snowpack this year, and then things got worse. And now Colorado is at the epicenter of a mega drought.
A mega drought? Do experts know what caused that?
Well, a new study from CU Boulder finds it's directly linked to climate change. They studied this kind of wonky thing called the Pacific Decadal Oscillation.
That's a mouthful.
Yeah, it's a climate cycle that usually flips between wet and dry phases every 20 years, but that flip hasn't happened. Instead, it's been dry for more than 3 decades, shrinking the Colorado River, parching farms, and increasing the risk for these wildfires.
And that set the stage for these big, fast-growing wildfires that we've seen on the western slope over the last month or so.
And another hot new study dropped this week from Colorado State University, which looked at fire data across the Mountain West. And they found that fires are just getting way bigger and more destructive. So of the 10 largest fires in state history, 8 of those have actually happened within the past 15 years.
Whoa. So then drought is creating worse fire conditions. But what exactly is sparking the fires?
Dry storms. Think lightning, but no rain. It's monsoon season now, so it's normal to have storms, right? But it's so dry and there's so little humidity that the storms just produce lightning, which hits the dry grass and kindling and keeps starting these fires.
The couple of periods earlier in the summer when there was a little bit more moisture around and there were some storms, they didn't produce very much rain, but they had lightning, and that's what started most, if not all, of these wildfires this summer.
But Schumacher says things are looking up. More rain is expected this week, about 2 inches through Friday for the western slope, and that's helping put out some of those fires. But now, I hate to say it, that rain could also cause flooding in those burn scar areas. So there's flood warnings out because of that.
So we're not catching a break. CPR's Tegan Wetland. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Arlo.
Do you know what the nickname is for Boulder? Just like the Big Apple or the Windy City or the Mile High City, Boulder has a nickname too.
I don't know the nickname.
I'm a resident of Boulder for the last 35 years, and no, I do not know the nickname.
Yeah, I just didn't know it was like a nickname.
Well, maybe it's less of a nickname and more of a label attached to Boulder and other of its, let's say, compatriot cities across the country. CPR's Caitlin Kim went asking around because she got a question from a listener through Colorado Wonders. She then sat down with Bazi to chat about it.
Caitlin, what were you trying to get to the bottom of here?
Yeah, so a listener submitted what I thought was a straightforward question through Colorado Wonders, and they wanted to know where Boulder's nickname comes from and the story behind it. You know, the name is the People's Republic of Boulder.
I have heard of that, but of course, I've been in Colorado a long time.
You know, but some of the residents I spoke to have lived in Boulder for a long time. They couldn't, come up with it off the top of their head. So I got most of my answers at the Museum of Boulder.
I looked up People's Republic of Boulder, and like when I looked it up in our database, it doesn't appear. I could not find any references to it.
That's museum curator Elizabeth Nossick. While she didn't find the nickname exactly, she did find plenty of nods to it.
And then I started finding the People's Parking Spot, which is now a patio at the St. Julian's Hotel. There is the People's Grocery, there's the People's this. So it may not be the People's Republic, but it's the People's such and such.
So nods to it, but not really a direct reference. Do we know where the People's Republic nickname comes from?
Yes. Nossick says the People's Republic nickname stems, not surprisingly, from the counterculture and the hippie era, about 60 years or so ago.
We have hung on to that nickname for a number of years because we've been really proud of being hippies, of thinking outside of the box.
Is Boulder the only People's Republic out there?
No, actually it's been given to cities like Cambridge, Berkeley, and Madison as well, college towns with a decidedly liberal bent. And look, there's definitely a political aspect to the nickname, but part of that hippie era also goes into sort of like organic foods or health foods and the outdoors. So there's also this community aspect to it. And you can see that by the different ways people actually interpret the meaning of the People's Republic.
How so? What are those different ways?
Well, so for example, Rob Peterson was visiting from Texas, and when he heard the nickname, he told me he thought it applied to Boulder, a liberal city.
It sounds kind of like North Korea, a little bit, doesn't it? I mean, when you say People's Republic, that reminds you of communist countries. That's all I got to say about it.
While Sophie Fan, who was visiting Boulder for the summer, thinks it fits because, for her, it connoted this sense of community.
On the first weekend, I went to a resource central where they were selling native plants and people could get their knives sharpened, also their clothing fixed, and also buy used doors, washing machines, and dishwashers and garden tools. So I thought it was a cool community initiative to be more sustainable. So I guess that makes sense, that there's a nickname, that there's a People's Republic kind of. People come together.
What I did find interesting is that I talked to Cindy Levy, who went to school at CU Boulder during that hippie era, graduating in the early 1970s. She didn't like the nickname because she thinks the message it sends is that Boulder is different, different from everything else out there, which I actually think goes to some of the other monikers for the city, like the Boulder Bubble or her 25 square miles surrounded by reality.
So whether People's Republic is a good thing or not, sounds like it depends on who you're talking to.
Yes, regardless of its roots, Boulder's nickname and its meaning, like so many things, is in the eye of the beholder.
CPR's Caitlin Kim. Thanks, Caitlin.
Thank you, Bazi.
If you have a question about our state, send it to us through Colorado Wonders. You can find a link in the show notes.
Reporting for today's show also came from KRCC's Andrew Chalfin and Stephanie Rivera, plus CPR's Allison Sherry and Benta Birkland. Also want to give a huge thank you to Dan Boyce for helping out while I was gone. Remember to follow Colorado Today in your podcast app. I'm Arlo Pérez Esquivel. This is CPR News.
Support for Colorado Today comes from Credit Union of Colorado. With access to over 30,000 ATMs and a mobile app, they're dedicated to offering the services of a big bank with a heart. Learn more at honestlygood.org.
Support for Colorado Today comes from Safeway. This Labor Day, fire up the grill and enjoy quality meats and fresh local produce from Safeway. Safeway proudly supports Colorado farms and small businesses. Shop in-store or in the Safeway app.